SharePoint's Checkout and Check-in feature gives you the ability to reserve a document for your own private editing session. When you check out a document in SharePoint, the file is then read-only for everyone else, and you can edit at your leisure and then check the document back in knowing that no one else has been able to edit it during the time you've been editing it. To check out a document, for example, this weekly assignments document, there are at least 3 ways that I can do this. I can click the ellipsis here, click the More Actions menu ellipsis, choose Advanced, and choose Checkout. And this is a little sluggish because it's trying to generate a preview at the same time. So if I know I'm going to check out, I don't have to go the slower route. With this document selected, I can click More to open the menu, and Advanced, and Checkout, and it's faster because it's not trying to generate a preview of the document for me. Additionally, I can go to Files, and with the document selected, I can click Checkout here. So these are 3 different ways I can check out a document. Whichever one I choose, after I click Checkout, you'll notice a progress meter somewhere that will say it's checking the document out. This takes a moment. And eventually you'll know it's checked out because if you look at the icon for the document, it will have an arrow on it, a downward pointing green arrow with a checked out arrow. And if you point to that icon, it will say not just the name of the document, but who it's checked out to. I can now open this document and edit it. I'm going to open it in Word. Anyone else who tries to edit this document now will receive a read-only copy of it, and they won't be able to save it back over top of this document using the same name because I have it checked out. They won't even be able to save it as a new version of this document because I have weekly assignments checked out to me. Here's my document. Now if I go to File right now, notice backstage on Info, it says this is a checked out document. Nobody else can edit this document or view the changes until it's checked in. And what that means is if I need to start entering information and I don't want someone to see some of the information I'm entering, some of the assignments, for example, until all of the assignments are in here, this is a good strategy because otherwise, as I'm working on a document, people can go see some of the edits that I've been making. I'm going to simply change a couple of items. This is our training schedule and assignments for 2016 in April. I'm all set with that. I'm going to save this and go to File. Notice I have the ability right here to do 2 different things. One is to say, I'm really not going to work with this document anymore and I don't need to save the changes I just made. And in that case, I can discard the checkout. If I do that, the changes I made will be discarded as well. Or I can say, I'm all done. Let's check this document back in. If I check the document back in, SharePoint is releasing that unique hold that I have on the document. I have the ability to add comments for this version, and I'm simply going to say added the month and year. Notice, I can say check this version in and keep the document checked out. Why would I do this? Well, let's imagine a very long editing session in an employee handbook or a policy manual. And I'm updating sections and need people to be able to view the sections that are actually complete. I can check in the version that has all of the items under HR policy done. Make a note, HR policies are done in this version. By checking the document in, the new version that people will see is the checked in version. By keeping the document checked out, no one can edit it and I can continue editing. And now that we're done with the HR policies, I can take a look at the IT policies, for example. That's what this checkbox is for. But I'm not going to keep the document checked out. I'm simply going to say OK. Weekly assignments document is being checked back in. Let's go back to SharePoint. Here's SharePoint just as I left it. Notice that this document still looks like it's checked out, so I'm going to simply refresh our document library here. If I waited a little longer, it would probably already be done by now, and my document would show that it was checked back in. I reload the web page and notice that weekly assignments now is no longer checked out. By default, checkout is not required. It is totally optional. But you may work in some document libraries that require that you check out documents that you're editing. And that example of the library that has all of our policies in it is a pretty good example, because that's often a place where you don't want a policy that's partially updated posted on the site. If you want to require that people check documents out of a particular library, that's a library setting that we'll be dealing with in the next chapter. So what's the downside of check-in, check-out? Check-in and check-out actually has been a feature in SharePoint for a while, and it predates a feature called co-authoring. When I co-author, that means that I can be editing and have someone else editing at the same time in the document. Not just someone, but many someones. I've had a session where I've had up to a dozen people working in a document at one time. However, if anybody checks the document out, that makes them the exclusive author, and co-authoring, therefore, for that document is no longer enabled. If you're trying to create a collaborative environment where people can author documents simultaneously, then you don't want to have checkout required on your libraries. And further, you don't want to train people to check out documents. This used to be the best way to edit documents. So if you're moving, for example, from SharePoint 2010 up to SharePoint 2016 or SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint Online, this is the type of thing that you'll want to make sure your users are aware of. That checkout and check-in, unless it's required, is something you wouldn't recommend if your teams are co-authoring documents.